Thank you, Angela. And my name, hello everyone. My name is Chloe. My pronouns are CNT, and I am named Lead Researcher. I am a white queer settler, which signifies that I greatly benefit from research and researchers generated and disseminated purpose nations, media, and Inuit persons, indigenous, disabled persons, as well as disability peoples. I am currently located on the traditional territory of the Andamantaran and Anishinaabe Haudenosaunee Lunenbiwak peoples, also the territory of the Algonquin peoples will forever be my own, and where I first learned from indigenous disabled, sorry, from indigenous communities. I recognize my privilege to witness beauty that is nature, and I acknowledge the coloniality prevailing in the field where my community-based research and doctoral research are located. I continue I am continuously learning from the intersections that exist between disability and intentionality, as well as our society further nationalizes these intersections. I commit to honor knowledge and recognize systems of operation that remain at the forefront of education, and I continuously strive to improve the learnings of what I readily benefit from.
Thank you, Chloe, for the land acknowledgement. I will be going over the project, the NEADS Virtual Access for All project overview. The National Educational Association of Disabled Students, NEADS, is a by and for cross-disability, cross-Canada charitable organization supporting full access to education and employment for disabled post-secondary students and graduates. By working across 3 strategic areas of debt reduction, experiences in class and on campus, and employment, NEADS offers a variety of events, resources, supports, financial assistance programs, and opportunities for disabled students and graduates. We collaborate with post-secondary stakeholders, other non-governmental organizations, employers, disability services providers, and community members to improve opportunities in higher education and the labor market for disabled students. We also provide ongoing advice to Employment and Social Development Canada, provincial and territorial governments, and work to promote government programs and services that support higher education for disabled students. The Virtual Access for All project is a 2-year project funded by Employment and Social Development Canada's support for student learning program. The Virtual Access for All project supports disabled students to successfully navigate the transition to post-secondary education. Since the beginning of this project in 2021, we have been connecting students with existing mentoring opportunities and resources, offered webinars on various topics related to accessibility, expanded our National Student Awards program, and funded our Accessibility Resilience program. Disabled students often experience systemic barriers to education, which makes it more challenging for them to complete their studies and may cause them to graduate with more debt. Projects such as this one play an important role in ensuring disabled students can successfully complete their studies and be a part of an inclusive economic recovery for all individuals. And that is all for the Virtual Access for All overview.
Thank you, Angela. Katja, I will take a moment to pull up your slide.
Sounds good.
Okay, we're on the first slide.
So good afternoon, everybody. To start off, I guess I will introduce myself. My name is Katja Newman. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the NEADS Financial Assistance Programs Director, as well as co-manager of NEADS's Building Employment Pathways project. And I'd like to start today by building a little bit more on Adela's description of the Virtual Access for All project. So there are a few key components to this project. The main goal of this project is to empower students with disabilities to transition into and succeed within post-secondary education. We've been doing a number of different things through this project, one of which is traveling to different post-secondary institutions across the country through our State of the Schools tour, where we've been meeting with and interacting with on-campus disabled student groups. Through this project, we are also creating quarterly State of the Schools reports. These reports describe These reports describe current trends and happenings within post-secondary education and the impacts that those current circumstances are having on post-secondary students transitioning into or within post-secondary. There is a particularly strong focus on the impact that COVID-19 has had on issues related to virtual and remote learning, and a great emphasis on the transition from high school into post-secondary. And those State of the Schools reports can be found on NEADS' Disability Awards website. And the last component of this project that I will highlight is the project has allowed us to run webinars such as this one on topics related to post-secondary education as a student with a disability. We can go to the next slide, Chloe. With it being the start of a new school year, we thought it would be a fitting time to readdress the transition into post-secondary or the transition to a new school year for students who are already in progress with their studies. We wanted to provide some helpful tips and suggestions that would help with that transition process. So I'm going to start off by highlighting the difference between high school and post-secondary accommodations. So universities and colleges have these departments called accessibility services offices. And it is through these departments that disability-related accommodations are requested. You will not, unlike in high school, where disability-related accommodations are automatically provided, receive these accommodations in post-secondary studies. They need to be requested. You will likely still need accommodations, however, if you did have them in high school. One study found that 15% of students who did not request accommodations, who had them in high school, dropped out of post-secondary. Having those accommodations really does make a big impact on reducing anxiety and allowing for greater focus and academic success. We can go to the next slide. Some who are new to the world of post-secondary might not be super familiar with how to request accommodations. The first step in the process is reaching out. You need to contact your school's accessibility services department and request an intake meeting. An intake meeting is the second important step of this accommodations process. At an intake meeting, you will present relevant medical documentation, copies of records of any past high school or other educational accommodations that you've had in the past, and that documentation will back up your request for accommodations. It's worthwhile to note that for folks who might be in a situation where you don't have disability-related documentation at this point in time, that one potential resource that is available to you is called My Learning Coach. This is a nonprofit organization that provides free or reduced cost assessments for a number of different learning related disabilities. We can go to the next slide. Here we have some tips for a successful intake meeting. One of the most important things that you can do is advocate for yourself and come up with suggestions. The professionals that you'll be interacting with, don't know you. You know you best. You know your needs, the way you learn, etc. So it's very important to advocate for yourself and be open and descriptive about what you feel you need in order to be successful and to provide any background possible on what could be done to support your learning. It's also beneficial to review the province where you will be attending school's accessible education policy. It's important to know your rights as a student with a disability and to be able to reference those rights when setting up accommodations. You can also consider bringing someone with you to this intake meeting as a bit of moral support. One thing that students often don't know as well is that if you choose to bring a parent or a guardian or another significant individual into these conversations, is that those individuals will have to sign a disclosure allowing for them to like participate in the discussion of your needs. You can go to the next slide. So if you find yourself in a position where your accommodations have been approved, now what happens? Your accessibility advisor at the Accessibility Services Department will be providing you with something called a letter of accommodation. That letter of accommodation outlines all of the requested and approved accommodations. That letter is revised each semester depending on the courses that you are enrolled in. Some courses will have different needs depending on if they are, for example, more science and math based versus literature based. It's your responsibility to provide that letter of accommodation to your professors each semester. And it's really a best practice to chat with your professors as early on in the semester or it's best to chat with your professors as early on in the process as possible and on an ongoing basis. You should never assume that your professors remember your accommodations. Depending on the size of the post-secondary institution that you're attending, they may be interacting with hundreds of students a semester. So it's the responsibility of the student to maintain that constant communication. One commonly recommended practice related to that ongoing communication is to check in with professors prior to exams and tests to ensure that all necessary accommodations have been accounted for. Next slide. Self-advocacy, as has been previously mentioned, is super important in the context of your success as a post-secondary student. Self-advocacy can be described as involving 3 elements. Number 1, knowing your capacity and believing in your capabilities. 2, knowing, researching, and understanding your needs. And 3, knowing how to get what you need. Go to the next slide. What are your rights as a disabled student? Your rights are mostly spelled out in provincial accessible education legislation. For example, if you're attending the University of British Columbia, the relevant legislation would be the British Columbia Accessibility Plan and Bill 6, the Accessible British Columbia Act. So it can be often important to familiarize yourself with those pieces of legislation and the rights that they outline. Where sometimes students can run into issues is that those pieces of legislation are interpreted by the individual post-secondary institutions. And you can take this process one step further by requesting a copy of your school's accessibility plan or accessibility policies. Next slide. This topic might cause some folks some anxiety, but it's an unfortunate fact that on occasion, students will encounter professors, faculty members, etc., who either don't understand the accommodations process or who aren't super accommodating. If this does happen, there are a few things that can be done. It's important to calmly and professionally remind the professor that is the school's legal responsibility to accommodate you. And it can also be useful to remind any resistant professors that the Disability Services Department at the school is there to support them to fulfill any accommodation needs. Next slide. Some more tips and background for dealing with resistant professors. If you find yourself in this situation, it is best to ensure that everybody is connected. One thing that you can do is send an email to your assigned accessibility services coordinator, connecting them with the professor and providing a brief overview of the issue that you're currently facing. If you don't receive a timely response, try to be patient, be persistent in following up, but do acknowledge that potentially a lag time in response is often just due to the volume of interactions that these professionals are having. It should be it should be noted that students should always do their best to try and be polite and to not communicate in a reactive or aggressive manner. Next slide. One very neat aspect of the post-secondary education world is that often schools will have what are called on-campus disabled students groups. So these groups are student-led and complement the accessibility services departments at the relevant school. So they're student-led advocacy groups or clubs, they can be referred to as. They're run by and for students with disabilities. These groups often host events, run advocacy campaigns, and provide important peer support for students. So here you have listed some examples of some of the disabled students groups that exist. So at Dalhousie University, we have the Dalhousie Accessibility and Inclusion Society. At the University of Victoria, we have Society for Students with Disabilities. And at University of Toronto, we have Students for Barrier-Free Access. So at NEADS, we would strongly encourage folks who are trying to get settled at a new school, or who are looking for peer support, looking for information on how to request accommodations, and would benefit from feeling a part of the student community, to take a look and see if the academic institution you're attending has one of these clubs. Next slide. One thing that we often hear from students with disabilities is, what accommodations can I request? You know, the post-secondary world is often very different than high school, and this might be the first time that a student finds themselves in a situation where they are exploring the idea of accommodations, and or you don't know what's available in the post-secondary context that might be different or the same from high school. So to get you thinking, some examples of accommodations include alternative formats of textbooks or course materials, having an attendant to assist with personal care, chunked time or reduced length, closed captioning, electronic scribing softwares, extra time, flexibility with classroom attendance, flexibility with breaks, flexibility with deadlines, having a human scribe, large print font for course materials, memory aids, in-class recording, note takers, or pre-planned assistance during evacuation situations. And I just want to acknowledge that the list included on the slide came from the Nova Scotia Community College webpage. Next slide. So As was mentioned, I am the director of the NEADS Financial Assistance Program. So wanted to take a few minutes to turn to the topic of financing your education, which is another aspect that students often are reaching out to inquire about. So I'm going to provide a little bit of an overview of the NEADS Financial Assistance Program. So, as a part of the NEADS Financial Assistance component, as a part of the NEADS Financial Assistance Program, there are two main components of the program. One is $2,000 grants to offset costs such as assistive technology, food security, rent, amongst others, and partner-funded tuition scholarships. The program runs semesterly, and the current application period opened August 12th and will run till October 11th for the fall 2024 semester. Next slide. A little bit more about how the program works. So applicants have the choice to apply for grants or scholarships or both. There are 68 grants available each semester currently, and the partner-funded scholarships that are offered through this program range from $1,000 to $10,000. The partner-funded scholarships are available in certain semesters, and what semester certain scholarships are offered in is announced on an ongoing basis. Next slide. So here we have a breakdown of the different grants that are available through the NEADS Financial Assistance Program. So there are 28 $2,000 tuition grants, 5 grants for assistive technology, 5 grants for computers and tablets, 5 grants for ergonomic equipment, which an example of which would be a sit-stand desk. 5 grants for rent support, 5 grants for food security, 5 grants for mental health and wellness services. So that might include things like counseling, massage therapy, etc. 5 grants for learning supports, examples of which might include tuition or disability-related assessments, and 5 grants of $2,000 for medical supplies. Next slide. Here we have a list of our partner-funded scholarships. So our largest scholarship is the Canada Post Award, valued at $10,000. We also have the Accessible Media Sir Robert Pearson Memorial Scholarships. There are 2 of those. One is given to a student in the English community, and another is given to a student in the French-speaking community. I have the Connor Clark and Lunn Financial Group Scholarship, which is valued at $5,000 and is specifically for students who are studying in a business or economics related field. We have also have we also have three memorial scholarships that are each $1,000. So we have the Maristai Truthwaite Memorial Scholarship for the visually impaired, which is specifically given to a student who identifies as blind, visually impaired, or deafblind during the application process. We also have our Holly Bartlett Memorial Scholarship and our Christine Nieder Memorial Scholarship. Both of these scholarships are in memory of past NEADS board members, with the Christine Nieder scholarship being awarded specifically to a student in a graduate program. And as was mentioned, these are all each offered in a specific semester. The switch over to a semesterly process is quite new, so we're still in an in-between phase where our partners are deciding which semester they would like to offer their scholarships in. Next slide. Here we have our eligibility criteria. So in order to apply to the NEADS financial assistance program, applicants must be permanent residents or Canadian citizens, be living with a permanent, persistent, or prolonged disability, and be currently enrolled or accepted to a post-secondary program. Students must also be still enrolled or about to start their studies at the time when the award is granted. Next slide. A bit more of an explanation of the eligibility criteria. A permanent disability is a functional limitation that impacts functioning in the post-secondary environment. With a persistent or prolonged disability, that functional limitation has or is expected to last a minimum of 12 months. Current post-secondary students can apply, but they have to have been accepted to a post-secondary program. And a question that we often get is what is meant by full-time? So in the context of the financial assistance program, full-time is defined as 40% of a course load as per the Canada Financial Assistance Program definition. Folks might also like to know that the turnaround time for distribution of awards is roughly 2 months from the application closing deadline. So, for example, with our summer 2024 semester intake, those applications closed late June, and awards are in the process of being distributed. Next slide. A little bit of an overview of the application components. So So all applicants provide their contact info, school and program info, and answer some voluntary self-declaration questions. And at this point is where there's a little bit of difference depending on whether students are applying for grants, scholarships, or both. We can go to the next slide. If students are applying for grants, they will complete something called the NEADS Financial Assistance Calculator. I will explain a little bit more about that in a few slides. They'll also answer a question on quality of life, so how the grant would support and better their well-being and their academic journey. And that question can be answered in either a written or video submission. Next slide. If students are applying to scholarships, that process involves answering some short answer questions on topics such as self-advocacy, career goals, extracurricular involvement, media accessibility in the case of the Accessible Media Incorporated scholarships. Students will also provide the name and contact info for an academic or community reference during the process. And if students are applying for both grants and scholarships, they will complete all of those steps. Next slide. So to try and reduce the documentation burden on applicants and to not be collecting sensitive information from folks who in the end are not selected for awards, if selected as a grant recipient, at that point, we will require some documentation. And that documentation includes proof of enrollment, disability documentation, and some examples of acceptable disability documentation include medical documentation. So an example is hearing test results, or a letter from your accessibility services department confirming that you are registered with them and are receiving academic accommodations. Another potential form of disability proof is also a copy of any student financial assistance or provincial income support documentation that verify that you either receive student funding for students with disabilities or that you're receiving disability related income support. Next slide. And in the case of our scholarships, I just want to include that if selected for one of the scholarships, you would be providing all of the above plus an academic good standing form. And just to elaborate a little bit on that, an academic good standing form is simply a document that someone at your academic institution would sign that just states that you are in good standing, whatever that is defined as within your program of study. So we're trying to move away from ableist practices that are typically used for scholarship related processes that relied solely on, for example, grades and percentages that are often not a true reflection of how a student is performing. Next slide. So some folks are curious about what the financial aid calculator is. So our grants are primarily given out based on level of financial need. So the financial aid calculator helps you estimate your costs for the current or upcoming semester. And your costs are deducted from sources of income and financial support that you already have in place, and that determines your level of need. So the tool will require students to tell us about what they are anticipating spending in such areas as tuition and textbooks, assistive technology, computers and tablets, ergonomic equipment, rent/residence fees, grocery or meal plan fees, mental health and wellness services, learning supports, medical supplies. You'll also tell us about any loans and grants that you might have received, the amount of any scholarships or awards that you might have received for the semester. You would describe any employment income, parental assistance, etc. You can go to the next slide. As was mentioned, a little bit of, as I mentioned previously, about how recipients are selected. So for grants, the decision is based on, first, the answer to the quality of life question, and then secondly, the amount of financial aid need. So that's determined through that financial aid calculator. And it will also be taken into account any equity, diversity and inclusion information that is shared. So there is effort made to try and distribute grants geographically, as well as to prioritize individuals who identify as a part of systemically marginalized communities. Next slide. In terms of the selection criteria for the partner-funded scholarships, the criteria for these are set by the partner funding the scholarship. So, for example, Canada Post is looking for a strong commitment to academia and research, community involvement, and leadership and advocacy for self and others. Whereas Accessible Media Inc. is looking for knowledge of media accessibility. And other partners, such as Connor Clark and Lund, are looking specifically at the student's program of study. Yeah. Next slide. We also want to acknowledge that there are many scholarship and grant related opportunities for students with disabilities, and one of NEADS' websites that we operate is called disabilityawards.ca. This is a directory of hundreds of grant and scholarship opportunities specifically geared for students with disabilities. You can search, for example, by disability type, and there will be very shortly a search by school function, and I would highly encourage anybody who is looking for ways to help finance their education to give that site a look. Next slide. I just wanted to conclude by listing all of the ways that you can connect with NEADS. We have our main website, needs.ca. We have our Disability Awards portal, which I just mentioned, Disability Rights Online, and our Breaking It Down employment portal. We have a mailing list, and yeah, we can be found on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc. And I think I will turn it back over to Chloe. Thank you.
Thank you, Katja, for this very informative presentation. The last component of this webinar will be to showcase 4 short clips of community members indicating how they navigate a new term in post-secondary education. So I will bring up the first clip. Please bear with me as I share that clip. It will take a few moments. Thank you. First clip is by back. Again, so for the government that they see the clip on the screen. Please. Thank you.
Hi guys, this is Quebec from Territorial Barriers, and I was asked by Chloe at NEADS to give advice for students who are either going to school or returning to school this September. So as a wheelchair user, I always went to my classes a week early because I wanted to get the layout of where each class was and the actual layout of the class itself. Because you'd be surprised how many times I've had classrooms where there's no ramp to the front of the class, but I was meant to give a presentation, or I would go and have classes in buildings where they would tell me that the elevator works when it wants to. So finding out those little tidbits beforehand, and so you can choose accordingly and even give your prof a heads up accordingly so that they can move the classroom to a new area is always best. Have a great school year.
Thank you, back. The second clip is from our community member named Marissa.
Hi there, my name is Marissa Donaldson. I use she, they pronouns, and for those that may need an image description, I am currently wearing a tie-dye blue shirt, a silver necklace with 2 hoops on it. I have long, dirty blonde hair pulled back into a ponytail. I have round black glasses, and I am kind of a larger person taking up most of the video screen. I am a graduate student at the University of Victoria in Victoria, British Columbia, and I am studying educational psychology. I'm in the final year of my master's degree, and I also am a staff member at UVic's Society for Students with a Disability, which is the University of Victoria Student Society's advocacy group for disabled students. One tip that I have for this upcoming school year for students is to connect with your local student-run disability resource center. Many universities have these on campuses, whether it be through the student union, a club, through residents, or just kind of an online community. These groups can really help with advocacy for disabled students. They can bring community to us and to people like us. And they can provide education and other wonderful things for disabled students on campus. Especially if you are a new student coming to campus for the first time, I highly suggest connecting with folks at a student-led disability center at your school. It's a great way to make friends, find programming, community, and also get involved with your community. Thank you so much for having me on here, and I hope you have a great school year.
Thank you, Marissa. The third clip is by one of our board members, Stephanie.
Hi, welcome back to the new academic term. My name is Stephanie Evans, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm the Newfoundland and Labrador Director. If I could give advice to the new academic term, it would be firstly, to go to your campus early to figure out where your classes are. For me, it reduced my anxiety. Second, it would be to have a planner and a notebook and write down all your assignments or like dates that are important to keep you organized. Thirdly, it would be if you need accommodations in the classroom or with tests, go to your campus supports as soon as possible to get that scheduled and figured out. And then lastly, I just hope you enjoy the whole experience because it goes by so fast. And I hope you have fun and you make some friends and you join some clubs. And yeah, I hope you enjoy your fall semester. Bye.
Thank you, Stephanie. Final clip is by another member, both members named Elizabeth.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Doherty, and I am the New Brunswick Director with NEADS. I attend St. Thomas University in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and I am a Bachelor of Social Work student. I received a previous degree from St. Thomas University as well. I graduated in May 2022 with a major in sociology and a double minor in women and gender studies and psychology. My tip today would be to consider going part-time if that is in your best interest. I am somebody that has spent many years pursuing my first degree especially, and that looked differently throughout time. Many years I attended part-time, and at different times I also was a full-time student. So my suggestion would be to prioritize your health and well-being. And, you know, the finish line will always be there. We live in a society that tends to operate at full speed ahead. And for those of us with disabilities, that can be disastrous. So my suggestion is to individualize your own university experience, enjoy what comes with that. And I wish you all the best of luck this academic year. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. We have a few minutes left together. If everyone has questions, we can definitively entertain them now. I will wait a few moments. Feel free to raise your hand or write them in the chat. Thank you, Barbara.
I don't know, Chloe, if it's possible to put the ets@needs.ca email address in the chat, because that would
Yeah.
be for any folks that have any very specific questions to the financial assistance program. That would be how you would reach myself and other team members.
If there is no question, we can end the webinar. Thank you, Katja, for your time in sharing that wonderful knowledge. Thank you to the ASL and LSQ interpreters of English and for us interpreters as well as our captioner. Thank you also to my team who helped us during the event. Thank you, everyone. As